A few scriptures and a few thoughts to kind of frame things for Willie to come up and then do his thing with us. So the first scripture is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, verses 28 through 31. One of the scribes came near and heard them disputing with one another, people talking to Jesus. And seeing that Jesus answered them well, the scribe asked Jesus, "Which commandment is the first of all?" And Jesus answered, "The first is, 'Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other greater commandment greater than these." And then in the Gospel of John, one of the last things Jesus said to his disciples before he faced his arrest later that night and torture and death the next day. He said, "I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. And by this, everyone will know that you're my disciples, if you have love for one another." 1 John chapter 4, verses 16 through 18. "So we have known and have believed the love that God has for us. God is love. And those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. There's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear." Perfect in the Greek here means mature, evolved love, love in its fullness. And the word casts out in the Greek can mean dispel. It's kind of like what light does to darkness. That's what love can do to fear. And finally, from Micah 6:8, which those of you who come here regularly should know by heart, even though I always tell you I won't should on you. Okay. The 11th commandment. Micah 6:8, "What does God require of you, O human? But to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God." So that's the scriptural framework that Willie's going to come up and sing and speak into in a moment. I just want to say that in the aftermath of the election this past week, I have been keenly aware of how profoundly some of us have been affected. And we don't take a partisan stand here in elections as a church. And as I said earlier in my prayer alluded, we've got people on both sides here. But let's just say it's clear that many of us in our congregation were not pleased with how things went. And when the election went as it did, I actually called Willie on Wednesday. And we wondered together, should we do this? Should we reschedule? I mean, is this too raw of a Sunday to have you come and do this? Am I setting you up to be in a weird space? And then the more we thought about it, it was like, no, it's perfect. It's perfect. This is when we need art and music, beauty, soulfulness that comes through in music like you're about to experience. It will help us find our bearings. But I want to just take all the pressure off you this morning, Willie, okay? I mean, there's no way that anyone's going to have just the right words or just the right songs to speak into this strange moment that we find ourselves in now. So there is no pressure. But then again, if anyone can do it, I know you can. Yeah. What I was trying to allude to with the kids about doing what you love the most, but doing it in a way that makes the world a better place and that brings love to somebody. I was thinking of a quote from Presbyterian minister and author Frederick Buechner, who said, "A person's calling is where their own greatest source of joy intersects with the needs of the world. And I can't think of anybody who's lived out his calling any more beautifully than Willy, and the way that he has used his exceptional skill and lived out the psalmist who exhorts us to play skillfully on the stringed instruments. I always feel kind of guilty when I read that myself, but you can actually read that with some pride, I think. So all I'm going to say before I turn things over then is that the scriptures obviously were all about love. You come to this church very often and, you probably could get sick of hearing about love. Don't you have anything else other than love? Years ago when I was in seminary, one of my preaching professors said, most pastors really only have one or two sermons and they just keep on, coming at you in a different wrapping. Well, it's mine. Because, as far as I'm concerned, it was Jesus's. It is the biblical message. Love, God's love, is our North Star. Always. So if you're feeling frightened or disoriented or in exile, in a sense, as I wrote about in our newsletter this week, then stop and remember this. You, we, everyone, everything is being perfectly loved and held by God right now. It may not feel like it, but that's the truth. And no matter how much injustice and dishonesty or dominating power over us may come at us, or if it feels like the worst has happened, God's there even then. Just as God was when Jesus was on the cross, about to unleash the most powerful transforming expression of love yet. So nothing's over, folks. Love will always be the most powerful force in the universe. At our best, we're people who believe that. And we do our best in our own imperfect, flawed ways to embody that as individuals, as a community, and bring it to the world and stand for it with some guts. And as I always say, have some fun and not take ourselves so darn seriously in the process. So no matter what comes our way in the months and years to come, we will regroup and organize around God's perfect love and God's justice and God's kindness. And we will walk humbly with God, which means we'll be people who will come to a conversation with an open mind and heart, ready to acknowledge that we might have something to learn from someone we disagree with. And there will be music and singing, and we'll seek the divine presence together, and we'll do our best with the Spirit's help to walk in the way of Jesus together. So that's all I've got to say today. Let's give Willy a warm round of applause as he comes forward.
Thank you, Pastor Bryan, Brother Bryan. Well, I am truly humbled to be here today and very grateful for the opportunity. Speaking of love, speaking of witnessing, I'll play some songs that sort of represent the nature of my journey and the nature of how faith has really informed my journey as a musician, but also how my faith has represented an opportunity to me more than a responsibility. So we'll get into that a little bit. But this first song was written after my daughter was born. And we had a very difficult childbirth with her. She was born at home, and both my wife and daughter were in grave medical condition at the point of birth. And I felt this amazing visitation in that moment. And I thought, this is something that is not going to wash off. And I'm carrying this now. I traveled to France and I met with some people. A friend of mine told me a story about how his brother had died in a motorcycle accident, and the nature of his brother's physical expression when the EMTs arrived on the scene, and how he was carrying that. And then I thought about the trajectory of my own existence in this form of flesh and bone, and how I would exit this place, and what that would look like. All of these things distilled into this song. And it ties in with the introduction that I read when I came in today, the mention of unconditional love and how we manifest that. So I'll play this tune for you, and I promise not to talk in this tone the whole way. What a beautiful space you have here, and thank you, John, for your hand in creating it. Yeah. There's a woman with a baby sitting next to me as we ride the crooked train into New York City. She holds that child on her bended knee, whispers something that only he can hear. She says, I will always love you, no matter what may come. I carried you inside myself, the two of us are one. No matter how you fall down, how it comes undone, to me you will always be shining. And he stares into her brown eyes above, into the face of unconditional love. I see a man laying in the street, left his motorcycle at a high rate of speed. In his eyes there's a vacancy, but he seems, yes, seems to be smiling. Or maybe he was a Muslim, a Christian, or a Jew. I hope that he was laughing when off that bike he flew. Maybe he struggled to believe, just like me and you, as the ambulance is too late arriving. And now he stares into the sky above, into the face of unconditional love. Unconditional love. Sometimes I'm impossible, sometimes I rage and roar, sometimes all the dreams are spent and strewn across the floor. Then I see myself reflected in your eyes, all the tragedy, the hope, and the fear. So in my hour of dying, when the light is clear and clean, if it helps read from the Bible, don't hook me up to those machines. Just stay by my side as I slide into some peace. Give me strength over what I'm afraid of. Give me strength over what I'm afraid of. In the face of unconditional love. Hey now, love. Unconditional love. Love. I only want to be a part of love. So I sit before you, someone who's been a fan of humans since I was a little kid. I've always been fascinated. And when I look at your faces today, I see people, but I also see journeys. I see people who are walking through complex situations, through the beauty of their lives, through the tragedy and loss of our lives, and through all of these obstacles, both real and imagined, that we place before us, ourselves as we walk. I find that profound. I find the individual to be profound in every case. And so, if I take myself out of the play, what do I find? I find an opportunity to help somebody else. I find that my responsibility as a human being really does turn into a chance to celebrate. I'm recovered alcoholic. I've got 9 years of sobriety, and I'm grateful for every single day. Thank you. Prior to that decision to change my life, I found myself in England with some friends. We were in a pub watching a football match. And I didn't really have a dog in that fight, as the saying goes. But they were cheering for Arsenal to win. And Arsenal won that day. And as we left the pub, we were all very much overserved. We stepped out into the bustle of North London. And when we approached a roundabout, I instinctively looked to the left. Never heard the bus that was coming from the right. And so as I sat there in that moment, stepping off the curb, my friend grabbed me by the neck of my jacket and pulled me back and said, "Not so fast, mate." And I could feel the air off the mirror of the bus wash over me as the bus went by. And I realized my friend had reacted in a way that I think is wired into us. It's that split-second decision to do the right thing. It's not a responsibility, it's an opportunity. And in that moment, I felt that. I felt gratitude. I also felt amazingly sober. Fast forward a couple of years, and I'm in New York City, and I'm staying at a friend's apartment, and I'm watching the flow of traffic patterns through this intersection, both human and vehicle traffic. And I'm just trying to discern if there's any sort of real rhythm or reason. And the only thing I can come up with is that God has got to be throwing the switches here, because it keeps working out. Well, I look down and I see a woman who's in a hurry, and she's got her briefcase, and she's walking too fast. And she also steps off the curb and somebody reacts to her. And in that moment, I realized that I was getting to witness what I had actually done. And I thought, okay, I'll write the song. Yeah. So the idea behind this tune is that we all have an opportunity. As a friend of mine said, what if it's up to us? And as we look at what has just transpired in this election, many people are really, really frightened and scared. But I see opportunities everywhere. I see opportunities for us to help each other, to step up and represent our faith in this unspoken, most beautiful way through human expression and the expression of kindness, the expression of tolerance and inclusion. We reclaim what makes us great in this moment. And I have a lot of faith and hope in that. So this tune. This is from an album called Human Kindness. And it has a chorus you can sing along to if you've heard the song 5 or 6 times. That's something that my friends always say to me. They're like, Willy, how come you don't write simple choruses like nursery rhyme choruses? I mean, that's what people really want. And I said, I enjoy the security of obscurity. So, human kindness. In the moments when time collides with an outcome we would not survive, a man reached out to pull her back as she slipped into a bus's path. I said, I won't give up on the verge of love. I can't give up or ever give enough. Human kindness is alive and well. Where we will find it, no one can tell. Wear it for shelter, surround yourself. Human kindness is alive and well. If I forget myself for someone else, I break the boundaries of my human self. We realize what's possible when we give and take a little trust. I said, I won't give up on the verge of love. Can't give up or ever give enough. Human kindness is alive and well. Where we will find it, no one can tell. Wear it for shelter, surround yourself. Human kindness is alive and well. Yeah. We're together in the storyline. As we change, the story survives. All our second chances come when we're done closing our eyes. Human kindness is is alive and well, where we will find and no one can tell, where it for shelter, surround yourself. Human kindness is alive and well. Kindness is alive and well. Don't believe the foolish jive they sell. Wear it for shelter, surround yourself. Human kindness is alive and well. Human kindness is alive and well. Had my some dear friends over the other night for Chinese food, and we were sitting in the dining room eating our food and telling stories, and my friend started to tell me that she had just recently participated in a triathlon, and I like exercise and stuff, but some things just seem like a bridge too far to me. You know? Like, I'll be on the transition team, you know, when you come out of the water, I'll make sure your bike is ready to go. You know, I'll be there. But she started to talk a little bit about the nervous energy before the race, and I was listening to her, and she said, you know, there's so much anxiety, and you have to go out and the water's really cold. And she said, I really had a hard time getting my heart rate under control and feeling as though I was going to be able to manage this moment because there are a couple thousand people headed for the water at the same time. And they go in groups and stages and so on based on how people have qualified and finished in the past and so on. But she was in a big throng of people. And she said, I trained for this, but just didn't feel prepared. And so the water's cold, and I looked out at the lake, and the waves were formidable. And we have to go 3/4 of a mile or something in this race. And I said, well, how did you deal with that? And she said, well, thankfully, I was able to wear a wetsuit for this event. And I said, oh, really? She said, yeah, everybody's got a wetsuit on. And she said, you know, you put that thing on and you're standing there in the wind and you look at all your competitors and you realize everybody has the same mission, everyone has the same fear. And you also have this wetsuit. And I said, well, what does the wetsuit do for you? And she said, well, it keeps your body temperature up and it provides buoyancy. And that just clicked in my mind. Buoyancy. You know, Oxford Dictionary defines buoyancy as the principle wherein an object or a substance is able to float on water or another substance, or it's a state of being, a mindset of opportunism. And that clicked for me. And I realized as a kid who grew up in an alcoholic house, a man who grew up to have his own issues with drugs and alcohol, my faith became my buoyancy. It became my wetsuit. And music was even more that for me. It was a way to channel what I couldn't understand. It was a way forward in a forest of uncertainty, violence, and also fear, in its finest form, I guess. So my musical path has led me here to this room with you kind people. That's not lost on me. And when Bryan called me up and he said, we had a chat about what does your faith tell you to do? The word responsibility came out of me, and Bryan said, well, it sounds like an opportunity. So it was in that moment of redefining something, almost like taking should and turning it into could, that I realized I have more power than I let myself believe sometimes. So I traveled to Palestine, the West Bank, in 2017 as a part of a human rights mission to explore both sides of the situation there. And of course, there are more than two. But primarily from the viewpoint of the Israelis and the Palestinians. And I came away with this feeling that I was able to experience and witness love in its most beautiful and profound ways among both communities. And I wondered why that bridge couldn't be joined, why they couldn't see the love that each community does share more closely, more intimately, and reimagine shared space. I don't have any answers, but I wrote a song from that perspective of witness. And this is called The Same Love. There's a little girl playing on the hood of a burned out car. Dust and laughter in her hair as the children dance on the roof of the refugee camp. I hear the Ramadan call to prayer. I want to feel the same love, just the same as you. I want to share the dream, the faith, the same love of truth. Shed some tears in a prayer at the Wailing Wall, between bar mitzvahs and mournful sounds. Shuffle my feet on the Jerusalem street, grateful for the new friends that I found. We all want the same love, just the same as you. We all want the dream, the faith, the same love of truth. The same love comes through. Playing frisbee in the Negev with the Bedouin kids. We shared no language, just a smile. I couldn't comprehend how they lived like they did. Wajahala got in the face of a child. Now I'm walking these Bethlehem streets, bathed in paper lantern light. I turn and face and pray to the Temple Mount as the sun is born out of the night. I wanna feel the same love, just the same as you. I wanna share the dream, faith, the same love of truth. I wanna feel the same love, just the same as you. I wanna share the dream, faith, the same love comes through. The same love comes through. Well, thank you to Bryan, Pastor Bryan, and thank you all for this wonderful opportunity to be here today. And what if it's up to us? I love asking myself that question every day. What if it's up to us? As you drive by the car of the person who's disabled on the side of the road, what if it's up to us today? What have we presented with? What opportunities stand before us in this moment and the next moment? So, thank you so much for this. So, I've taken some liberties with our final song here, and I know you guys all know it pretty well. It's a beautiful piece, and let's do this one. What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what a peace we often forfeit. Oh, needlessly. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to our God in prayer. We find a friend so faithful. Jesus knows our every your friends might forsake you. Jesus' arms can shield you. You will find some solace there. Take it to our God in prayer. Take it to our God in prayer. Thank you so much.